The morning air in Jefferson County, Virginia still carried a little chill when Danielle Brooks turned her rental SUV into a crowded gas station just off Highway 18. It was the kind of place where people stopped for coffee, filled their tanks, and exchanged a few words before getting back on the road. Families were traveling, truckers were grabbing breakfast, and a cashier inside was wiping down the counter. Danielle looked like an ordinary professional on a work trip. She wore a charcoal blazer over a white blouse, dark trousers, and comfortable black shoes. Her hair was pulled neatly back, and a simple leather bag rested on the passenger seat. What nobody at that gas station knew was that Danielle wasn't there for a vacation or a casual business meeting. She was a federal investigator. Her assignment involved reviewing complaints against the local sheriff's department, complaints that had been quietly buried for years. Allegations of unlawful searches, racial profiling, intimidation. Officers using their authority against people who didn't have the money, connections, or confidence to fight back. Danielle had spent weeks reading those files. She had learned something during that time. Behind every complaint was a person, a mother who had been stopped on her way home from work, a black teenager whose car had been searched because an officer claimed he looked suspicious, a father who had tried to report an incident and was told there wasn't enough evidence. Danielle wasn't interested in revenge. She wanted facts, she wanted records, and most of all, she wanted to understand why so many people had complained about the same department, while almost nobody inside the department had been held accountable. She pulled into Pump 6, turned off the engine, and stepped outside. For a moment, everything felt normal. She took her wallet from her bag, inserted her card, and began filling the tank. Then she noticed a patrol vehicle parked near the far end of the lot. She didn't think much of it. She had learned not to assume every police officer was looking for trouble. Most officers she had worked with during her career took their responsibilities seriously. She had met cops who stayed late to help families after accidents, officers who checked on elderly residents during storms, and deputies who genuinely believed their badge was a promise to protect people. That was why Danielle took her job seriously. A badge could be a symbol of trust, but trust could be destroyed when someone used that badge as permission to intimidate. Inside the patrol vehicle, Deputy Mark Ralston was watching her. He noticed the rental SUV first, then the out-of-state plate, then Danielle, his partner. Eric Miller glanced toward the pump. "Do you know her?" he asked. Ralston shook his head no. "Then why are you watching her?" Ralston didn't answer immediately. He kept his eyes on Danielle. "She doesn't belong around here." Miller frowned. "She's getting gas." Ralston opened his door. "Stay here, Mark." "What are you doing?" But Ralston was already walking across the parking lot. Danielle heard footsteps behind her. "Ma'am," she turned. Ralston stopped several feet away. "License and registration." Danielle looked at him calmly. "Of course, officer. May I ask why you don't need to ask questions? I understand. I'd still like to know what the stop is about." His expression hardened. "License." Danielle slowly reached into her bag. She made sure every movement was visible. She had learned years ago that when a black woman is dealing with an angry officer, even an innocent movement can be misunderstood. She handed him her license. Ralston looked at it. "Maryland, yes. What are you doing in Virginia business?" "What kind federal work?" Ralston looked up. "Federal, yes." He studied her face. Danielle could see his attitude changing. Not because she had threatened him, not because she had refused to cooperate, simply because she had answered him calmly and hadn't lowered her eyes. Ralston stepped closer. "What federal agency?" Danielle hesitated. "My assignment is confidential." He gave a short laugh. "Confidential, yes." He looked toward her rental SUV. "Open the vehicle." Danielle's voice remained steady. "Officer, I don't consent to a search." Ralston's jaw tightened. "I wasn't asking." He walked toward the SUV. Danielle followed several steps behind. "Officer, I have cooperated with every request you've made. I am asking you to explain the legal basis for searching my vehicle." Ralston opened the driver's door. A few people nearby turned to watch. Danielle noticed a truck driver leaning against his vehicle. Two young women near the convenience store had stopped talking. A mother standing beside a minivan pulled her child closer. Danielle knew the scene was changing. She also knew that remaining calm was not weakness. It was control. Ralston began removing her belongings. First came her laptop bag, then a coat, then a folder containing notes from her investigation. He dropped each item onto the pavement, as if none of it belonged to a human being. Daniel watched without stepping forward. Then Ralston reached beneath the passenger seat. His hand closed around a small black leather case. He pulled it out for the first time. His confidence faltered. He opened it. Inside was Danielle's federal badge. The gold seal caught the morning sunlight. Ralston stared at it. Then he slowly looked at Danielle. What exactly is this? Ralston stared at the badge for a long moment. The gold federal seal was impossible to miss. Underneath it were Danielle's photograph, her identification number, and the words that made the situation far more serious than he seemed willing to understand. United States Department of Justice. Danielle watched his eyes move across the badge officer. She said quietly, "You should verify it before you do anything else." Ralston looked at her and laughed. "Verify it, yes. You expect me to believe you're some kind of federal investigator? I expect you to do your job." That answer irritated him. Instead of checking the identification, Ralston held the badge between two fingers, as though it were something dirty. "You know how many people carry fake badges?" Daniel didn't respond. "People come through here pretending to be federal agents all the time," he continued. Daniel looked at his body camera. It was still recording. "Then verify mine." Ralston shook his head. "You're not going to tell me how to do my job." "I didn't say that you're acting like you know more than me." Daniel took a slow breath. "No, Officer Ralston. I'm asking you to make sure you understand what you're holding." The words were respectful. There was no insult, no raised voice, no threat, but Ralston seemed to hear them as a challenge. His partner, Eric Miller, had now walked closer. He looked at the badge mark. He said, "Maybe we should call it in." Ralston turned sharply. "I've got it handled." Miller hesitated. He was young, only months into the job, but even he could feel something was wrong. A police officer's authority was supposed to make a difficult situation safer, not more dangerous. Miller had joined law enforcement because he believed a badge meant responsibility. He had wanted to help people standing there. Now he realized that the uniform could not tell him whether the person wearing it was doing the right thing. That decision came from the person. Ralston looked back at Danielle. "Where's your warrant?" Danielle blinked. "For what? For carrying this?" "Federal employees don't need a warrant to carry their credentials." Ralston scoffed. "Sure." Danielle's patience was being tested, but she kept herself grounded. She thought about all the people whose stories were sitting inside the folder. On the pavement, people who had been afraid to speak, people who had been talked over, people who had been told that nobody would believe them. She refused to become another person, screaming in the middle of a confrontation. Instead, she looked Ralston directly in the eyes. "You have the authority to enforce the law." She said that authority comes with responsibility. Ralston laughed. "Don't lecture me." "I'm not lecturing you." "Then shut up and step back." The words were sharp. Danielle stepped back, not because she was intimidated, because she understood something important. Sometimes the strongest response to provocation is refusing to give someone the reaction they are trying to create. Ralston turned toward the trash can. Miller immediately noticed Mark. Ralston kept walking. "Don't." Ralston looked over his shoulder. "What I said." "Don't throw that away." Ralston smirked. "You worried about it?" Miller glanced at Danielle, then at the badge, then at the body camera. "I think we should verify it first." Ralston's voice dropped. "Are you questioning me?" "No, I'm saying we should follow procedure." For a second, neither man moved. Danielle stood quietly beside the SUV. She could see the conflict on Miller's face. He wasn't ready to challenge his partner openly, but he also wasn't comfortable participating in something he knew might be wrong. Ralston opened the trash can. Danielle spoke one final time. "Officer Ralston, I'm asking you not to do this." He looked back at her. "You keep telling me what to do." "No," Danielle said. "I'm warning you." That made him laugh. "A warning, yes." Ralston shook his head. "You people always think there's some bigger person coming to save you." Danielle's expression tightened for the first time, not because of the insult, because of what it revealed. She had spent years studying the difference between authority and accountability. Ralston had authority, but he seemed to believe accountability did not apply to him. He lifted the badge. Miller stepped forward. "Mark, seriously." Ralston ignored him. The badge dropped into the trash clang. The sound seemed louder than it should have been. The people nearby stopped talking. A woman holding a coffee cup stared. The truck driver slowly pulled his phone from his pocket. One of the young women near the store whispered, "Did he really just throw that in there?" Danielle looked at the trash can. Then she looked at Ralston. She didn't yell. She didn't curse. She didn't move toward him. Instead, she calmly reached for her phone. Ralston noticed immediately put that phone away. Danielle looked at him. Why? Because I'm telling you to. I have the right to make a phone call. To who? My supervisor. Ralston laughed again. Go ahead. Danielle unlocked her phone. Miller watched her carefully. Ralston crossed his arms. You really think somebody is coming because you flashed a badge? Danielle dialed a number she knew by heart. The call connected after one ring. Inspector Brooks, yes. Are you safe? Danielle looked at Ralston. For the moment, the supervisor's voice became serious. What happened? Danielle glanced toward the trash can. My federal credentials were taken during a vehicle search and discarded by a local officer. There was silence on the line. Then is his body camera active? Danielle looked at Ralston. Yes. Are there witnesses? She looked around the parking lot. Several security cameras. Yes. Then do not touch anything. Danielle looked at the trash can again. I won't. She ended the call. Ralston's expression had changed. What did you just do? Danielle put her phone away. I made a report. To who? My supervisor. What's their name? Danielle didn't answer. Ralston stepped closer. Who are you for the first time? The question sounded different. It wasn't asked with authority anymore. It was asked with uncertainty. Danielle looked at him steadily. You had the answer in your hand. She pointed toward the trash can. You chose not to read it. Miller looked at Ralston. Mark, I think we need to call the station. Ralston didn't respond. The confidence he had carried across the parking lot was beginning to disappear. Then, far beyond the gas station entrance, a distant siren became audible. One vehicle, then another. And suddenly, Ralston realized that the 5 minutes he had treated like a joke were becoming the longest 5 minutes of his career. The sirens grew louder. Ralston stood beside the patrol SUV, staring toward the entrance of the gas station. The confidence he had carried only minutes earlier was gone. His partner, Eric Miller, looked equally tense, but for a different reason. Miller wasn't worried about his career yet. He was worried because he finally understood that what happened next would depend on what they chose to do now. 3 unmarked SUVs entered the parking lot. Their doors opened almost at the same time. Federal agents stepped out. The gas station became completely silent. Danielle didn't move. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply stood there, with the same calm expression she had carried from the moment Ralston approached her. One agent walked directly toward her. Inspector Brooks, yes. Are you all right? Danielle nodded. I'm fine. The agent looked toward the trash can. Is that where your federal identification was discarded? Yes. He turned to another agent. Document everything before anyone touches it. Ralston swallowed hard. Wait. The agent looked at him step away from the trash can. Deputy Ralston obeyed 5 minutes earlier. He had been ordering Danielle around. Now he couldn't even move without being instructed. One agent photographed the trash can. Another secured the area. A third requested the body camera footage from both deputies. Miller immediately handed over his camera. Ralston hesitated. The agent looked at him. Your camera. Ralston removed it slowly. Danielle watched him. She wasn't enjoying his fear. If anything, she looked disappointed because she understood something that many people never learn. When a person abuses authority, the damage doesn't stop with the victim. It damages public trust in every honest officer who wears the same uniform. Miller looked at Danielle. Ma'am, I'm sorry. She turned toward him. You didn't throw the badge away. No, but you saw it happen. Miller lowered his eyes. Yes. Danielle nodded. Then remember this moment. He looked up. Remember that a badge is supposed to protect people, not intimidate them. Miller's face tightened. I understand. Ralston suddenly stepped forward. Inspector Brooks. Danielle turned. His voice was different now. Can we talk? You've had plenty of opportunities to talk. I made a mistake. Danielle looked at the badge being carefully removed from the trash. A mistake is forgetting where you parked your car. Ralston swallowed. This was different. Yes, Danielle said it was a choice. He looked toward the federal agents. Please don't make this bigger than it is. Danielle's eyes remained steady. You searched my vehicle without my consent. I had probable cause. You claimed you smelled marijuana. I did. You found none. Ralston said nothing. You took my belongings and threw them onto the pavement. Silence. And then you threw my federal identification into a trash can. After I specifically warned you not to. Ralston looked down. Danielle's voice softened. Do you understand why this matters? He didn't answer. It matters because you weren't just disrespecting me. She glanced at the uniform he wore. You were teaching everyone watching what you believed that uniform allowed you to do. The truck driver standing nearby slowly lowered his phone. One of the teenage girls stepped closer. Ma'am, Danielle looked over. The girl held up her phone. I recorded everything, Danielle nodded. Thank you, the girl smiled nervously. I didn't know if I should. You did the right thing. That small exchange mattered. Because sometimes courage doesn't look like running toward danger. Sometimes it looks like holding up a phone when everyone else is afraid to speak. Ralston looked around the parking lot. The same people he had tried to impress earlier were now watching him differently. There was no applause, no cheering, just silence. And somehow that silence was more powerful than anything else. A federal agent opened the folder Danielle had brought with her. Inspector Brooks, should we proceed with the Jefferson County review? Ralston looked up review. Danielle nodded. Yes, what review? She looked at him. The investigation into your department. His face went pale. You came here for us. I came here because people filed complaints. Ralston stared at her. How many? Danielle paused enough. The agent handed her another document. Danielle looked at it. Then she looked around the gas station. Every person who complained deserved to be heard. Ralston's voice cracked. Please. Danielle looked at him. Please what? Don't destroy my life. Danielle took a slow breath. I don't have that power. Ralston stared at her. The evidence does for the first time. Ralston understood the difference between revenge and accountability. Danielle wasn't trying to punish him because he had embarrassed her. She wanted the truth documented because other people could have been hurt after she left. That was what made her strength different. She had every reason to be angry, but she chose to be disciplined. She chose to let the cameras speak. The witnesses speak, the records speak, the evidence speak. And that was the lesson Danielle wanted people to understand. Being strong doesn't always mean fighting louder. Sometimes strength means staying calm. When someone is trying desperately to make you lose control, sometimes courage means speaking up when your voice shakes. And sometimes justice begins with one person refusing to accept that disrespect is simply part of the job. As the federal agents prepared to leave with the evidence, Danielle turned toward the people gathered around the gas station. She could see the curiosity in their faces. She knew this story would travel far beyond that parking lot. So she looked directly toward the two young women who had recorded the encounter. Don't ever be afraid to document what you see, she said, but remember, don't put yourself in danger. If you witness something wrong, seek help and preserve the truth when it's safe to do so. One of the women nodded. Then Danielle looked toward Eric Miller. Your badge can become a wall between you and the community, she said, or it can become a bridge. The choice is yours every day. Miller quietly nodded. Ralston said nothing. The federal vehicles began pulling away. Danielle retrieved her badge. She held it in her hand for a moment, looking at the small piece of metal that had nearly become a symbol of humiliation. Instead, it became something else. A reminder not that she was more powerful than anyone else, but that no person's dignity should depend on whether the person standing in front of them chooses to respect it. And if you've ever watched someone abuse a position of authority, tell me in the comments. What do you think Danielle should have done differently? Or did she handle the situation exactly right? And I want to hear from you about the next story too. Should the next story follow a black woman who stands up to a corrupt police officer? Or should we tell a story about an honest cop who risks his career to expose corruption inside his own department? Drop your choice in the comments, black woman or honest cop. Because your comments don't just tell me what you think about this story. They help decide where we take the next one. And remember, a badge is supposed to represent service, responsibility, and protection, not permission to humiliate another human being. Real strength isn't always the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it's the person who stays calm, tells the truth, and refuses to surrender her dignity.